All right, it's now time for the Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency, and we have a very special guest. He's a young guy, not like the guy he's replaced, Jerome Murphy. And we had a nice chat with Murph last year, but we're speaking with Teddy Rydquist of the Argus Press, their new sports reporter. And I've read some of your stuff, Teddy, and I really enjoy what I'm reading. It's a daunting task to cover all the schools in our area and all the different sports. So I know you got a lot on your plate, so we appreciate the time. Now, first question I have for you, are you a Teddy or are you a Theodore?
Uh-oh.
My legal first name is actually just Ted, just 3 letters, T-E-D. But
Okay.
yeah, I've just gone by either Ted or Teddy most of my life. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people would think Theodore, but it's actually just Ted.
Yep, I'm a Theodore, but I answered to the Teddy from my mom till she was 92 years old. So
That's right.
So, Teddy, do you think at some point you'll change your? I'm always interested with this, kind of similar to the Johnny and the John thing. My brother recently went from being called Johnny to John. Do you think at some point you'll go from Teddy to Ted, or are you Teddy for the long haul?
That's a good question. I think at this point I'm probably Teddy for the long haul. I mean, unless maybe something professionally work related where it made sense to change it. But at this point, I think I'm on board with being Teddy.
I like it. No offense, Ted. I think Teddy has a little more pizzazz, so I think you maybe made the wrong choice all them years ago.
you're probably
shortening it
right.
to Ted.
Teddy the sports guy.
That's right.
Ted just sounds too professional, especially once you get to know Ted. And it's like, yeah, he's not a Teddy. But so Ted did mention that you're replacing a legend, the Murph, Turf the Murph. I'm sure you've heard story after story about the great work that he did covering sports and other things in Shiawassee County. We were talking a little bit off air, I guess, that the 3 of us are from Corona, born and raised. Ted's still in the area. Jared, still up there very often. So we still, we know what's going on around that area with the sports scene. How does it feel? Not saying you're an outsider, but you're not born and raised in Corona or Wausau or whatever, and you're taking over for a legend. How does it feel coming in there, trying to learn the schools, the coaches, the traditions, some of the big matchups and stuff like that? Is it a little overwhelming, or are you just kind of taking it all in stride?
Yeah, I'm trying to take it all in stride. Like you said, there's a lot of learning on the fly because I started there, in January. So I jumped right in during the heart of basketball season and all the winter sports there. And I think, following Jerome, like you said, it could be a tough task, following a living legend. But, I was also very fortunate, to kind of, when I first started, get to work with him for a couple of weeks and kind of learn the ropes. And even now I could reach out to him and ask him anything. So he's a tremendous resource for me to have. And it was definitely kind of getting, thrown right into the fire a little bit, but I think it was a good thing. And I've loved every minute of it so far.
I'll say this before these guys jump in. Honestly, Ted over here would be a great resource for you too. I don't want to put Ted on the spot, but maybe keep his number in your Rolodex. And if you ever have a little question,
he's open for you anytime.
I already got your number saved, Ted. I'm sure I'll be asking you.
All right. Don't call after 10 o'clock at night, though.
It's a good rule right there. I like it.
So we were talking off air, and you said that you're kind of from Lake Orion. So what about, to me, or maybe it's just because we grew up in the Wausau Corona area, the Argus Press has, kind of some fun tradition and history to it. I know the classic printing press in there, a lot of, other newspapers and school newspapers print out of the Argus Press in Owasso. How did you end up there, and what was appealing to you to come here?
Absolutely. Yeah. A few years ago, shortly out of college, I worked at a couple smaller newspapers in the Lake Orion area. I worked at the Oxford Leader and the Lake Orion Review. So I got, some small time newspaper experience doing a lot of what I'm covering now, covering high school sports, except it was only for 1 or 2 schools there. And then, I found out about this opportunity just from, looking at job postings on Indeed, actually. And then I did some more deeper research on my own and went and visited the area. And I really like, the Argus Press, 10 area schools. It certainly keeps you busy, but I like getting to rotate around and all that. And I really love, the small town feel to it all. I mean, you guys know how it is being from the area. I think it's awesome how the community at all these schools, they show out for these games. There's great attendance here, sometimes better than you see even in, like the Lake Orion area where there's larger schools. Sometimes you'll see better attendance at these schools. So I really like how the communities care and just the feel that you have here in the Argus Press area.
I always like talking to real journalists, if you will. There's a lot of people out there in social media. That's how they're getting their bang for their buck. But you have to do both. You have to do real journalism, sports journalism, and then there is a share that you go online as well. Have you figured out the best way to work that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a really a good asset for that, and you guys see it as well, as the X, formerly Twitter. That's a huge asset for me. Just to get stuff out there as quickly as it's happening live. So that's a big thing for me. And then I've been looking into maybe trying to see if I could do some stuff on Instagram, and then hopefully I can become more involved in, broadcasting down the line as well. I'd be very interested in doing something like that too. So right now I'd say, Twitter/X is the main thing that I use for the social media side of things.
Yeah. The broadcast, I see how you slipped in the broadcasting thing, knowing you've got Ted over there.
That's
you're
right.
talking to him. I mean, he's already got his
Dang.
predecessor right now. Casey's doing an awesome job at the Castle, but Ted again would be another one to keep in mind if you want to get into the broadcasting game. So you're talking about the balance, I guess, between the paper and social media. You have to. Nowadays you have to use social media, especially Friday Night Lights. On Friday nights, high school football. I mean, those scores. I'm just sitting there, being out of town now, refreshing Twitter,
Exactly.
looking for all the updates on scores, and that's the best place to get it in real time, those scores. But there is something still cool about the newspaper. I mean, we all remember like getting an actual newspaper, seeing those headlines. If you were fortunate enough to get your picture on the front page or your name in the write-up, like there is still something really cool about an actual newspaper. Are you still kind of like old? I mean, you're going into the business, you are in the business. Do you still like that, that side of it? You still have, an appreciation for the actual newspaper, or kind of, are you looking to move on doing something else?
100% I do. Yeah. I'm with you guys in kind of that old school. I like the actual newspaper, and what you were touching on there, Matt. When, it's like a student athlete, or even more so, a lot of times it's like their parents or grandparents, when they see, their son or daughter in the paper, a picture, or even them just, mentioned for some feat or accomplishment. And, you can see how excited they are. So when I see someone get excited about something like that, that's what makes me feel good. And yep, I'm definitely a physical old school newspaper guy myself.
We can tell from behind you, you got a couple of great newspapers right there with the Kirk Gibson Great and the Not Bad Boys. Here's a wild question. What goes into writing a good headline?
That is a good question. A lot of the times what I like to do is, if I can, I like to try to tie in someone's name to it. Like, like if just like kind of like to do a little play on words, like if their last name is Cruz or something like that. So I like to try to just get a little creative with it. But also my boss at the Argus Press, Aaron Bodis, he helps me out with those headlines, and he's been a terrific guy to work for. I like Aaron a lot.
Yeah.
Teddy, for our listeners out there, we have a lot focused right here in mid-Michigan. Obviously, this is kind of get to know the new guy, Teddy. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you went collegiately, getting to the Argus. You mentioned about a couple of newspapers you worked at, but what about your education?
Yeah, absolutely. Graduated from Lake Orion High School back in 2014, so a decade ago now. And then I went to Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio, a MAC school. And I studied sport management there. And that was great. And I graduated from there in 2019. And so although I wasn't in, journalism or broadcasting directly, it was, a sports related field. And then a lot of my journalism was just, self-taught, was something I was interested in, and started off just going out and covering local high school events. And I think a big part in getting to where I was today was starting off at the Lake Orion Review and the Oxford Leader newspapers there. And then, I got a job from there at Lake Orion High School working for the AD. And then that led me to where my most recent job at Oakland University, where I was working as an SID there, but, unfortunately got let go just because of some financial situations. But, and then, that was what led me to, begin my job search and brought me to the Argus Press here. So it was, something that I wasn't quite expecting. It was kind of a roundabout journey, but I'm really happy where I ended up.
I mean,
You mentioned how you were thrown into
Sometimes
the
that's
fire.
how it goes. No, go ahead,
Right.
Jared. I was going to say that sometimes that's just how it goes.
That's how it goes sometimes. Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of being thrown into the fire a little bit. What was the kind of the first really kind of hard lessons you learned with being kind of not necessarily a beat reporter, but kind of the head sports reporter at the Argus Press?
Yeah, I mean, that I've been fortunate, I think, in that I've I'll knock on wood as I say this, haven't had to learn too many hard lessons, I would say yet. I haven't had too many, negative experiences or anything like that. But I definitely think the biggest thing for me jumping right in was acclimating myself with, which schools are, historically good in these programs. And, because I got to, even though I was brand new, I got to, make it seem like I knew what I was talking about at that time. And, because the readers know that and expect that.
Right.
So that was a big thing for me to kind of historically, at least the last few years, acclimate myself with which schools have been good in their respective sports. So it gave me a good groundwork to build on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, we're biased. We love the area, especially our Corona Cavaliers, but we love all the area schools and all their traditions. Maybe there's not piles of state championships like in some areas on the west side or Jackson Lumen Christi or some of those powerhouse schools in Michigan or something, but there are really you laid it out perfectly. The fans in that area, the communities, and they follow some of those sports, especially football, basketball, track and field, wrestling. I mean, there are really some fans that show up for these events. You came in middle of basketball season, so kind of, you probably heard about it on the tail end of a pretty cool football season this past fall.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to? Are you looking forward to football? Are you looking forward to next fall? Do you love the spring sports? Because there's a lot of really good track programs in the area. What kind of, from talking to some people in Shiawassee County, kind of has you excited for the job?
Yeah, right now I'm really interested in track and baseball. Those are the two spring sports and that I've been really interested in. And of course, softball too. But then, I think the number one, is once we get around to the fall here, the Friday night lights of football. I was fortunate to experience that in Oakland County growing up, and this fall will be my first go around in this area. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Well, just so you know,
go ahead.
Sorry, Ted. Just so you know, Argus Press always did a great high school football preview that helped Ted a lot for his radio broadcast. It really gave Ted the inside info for those area teams. But also, we do a pretty cool, we'll pat ourselves on the back. We do a pretty cool podcast. We call it the Prep Pigskin Preview, where we cover the whole state. We get media members from around the state to preview their area for high school football. So we might be giving you a call to give us the inside goods on Shiawassee County.
It sounds good to me, and I'll be tuning in to find out about those other areas too. Yeah.
You beat me to it, Matt. I was gonna tell him, just pencil it in. You're gonna be our Shiawassee County guy for sure.
Yep.
Teddy, you did miss the football season, like Matt said, but it was a pretty interesting basketball season with the storylines of Chesaning and Langsburg undefeated going into March Madness. Langsburg was the last team standing in our area, losing to Lumen Christi, but that had to be a little bit of a highlight, probably your early highlight in your career at the Argus, huh? Covering those teams.
Yeah, they'll probably always have that special place in the back of my mind that, when I first started, these were the first two really good basketball teams I covered, Langsburg and Chesaning. And it was awesome that they played in that regional semifinal game, that they were both 24-0 going into. And, for Langsburg, of course, it was their second year in a row being undefeated in the regular season. And Chesaning, this was maybe the best season they've ever had, their first district title in almost 30 years. So that was a great game. Xander Woodruff, of course, was a little too much for Chesaning, but then they ran into one of those schools we talked about, Jackson Lumen Christi, in the regional championship game there. But another terrific season for Langsburg, and I'm very excited to see what Xander Woodruff does in college, because I think he's a heck of a player.
What did I see? He committed to LCC to play basketball at Lansing Community. I'll be honest, I didn't know they had a basketball program. I knew they had baseball and some other sports, but that's a great opportunity for him.
Yeah,
and then hopefully a year or two down the road, maybe go to a Division II school or something, and after showing that he can play at LCC, I definitely think he's capable of it.
One last question for me, Teddy. So you mentioned kind of how you went through the archives of the local schools and teams in this area. On what page did you read about Ted's interception record, or have you not made it to that page yet?
Did you get it in the mail?
That was
I
still
sent
on
it
the
to you.
first page. That was we I think that's going to be on the first page probably forever. We just won't move it.
Yeah, if you don't know nothing about this area, if you don't know that he owns that record, what is it? 10 interceptions in one season?
Something like that.
Something.
don't
He
say
knows exact number, exactly what happened, what game. But yeah, so all right, yeah, I figured you knew about that. I just wanted to make sure you were brushed up on your Corona football knowledge.
Ted, and if that was today, you'd be a 4 or 5 star recruit probably.
I know. I got one phone call from a college, and my mom answered the phone. I was out partying or something and never returned the call.
all jokes aside, it is pretty impressive that record still stands.
Yeah, it is. I'll take it. 50 years, baby.
Right.
It's going to take a heck of a performance from someone to beat it. It might be safe for a while.
It
Oh
might
my
be.
God. It's turned into the Ted Fattel interception show.
That's right.
Let's move on. I will say this, Teddy. I do really enjoy your articles that I've read. You do a nice job. It's not the easiest job in the world. I mean, when you get to football season and basketball season again, you spend a lot of late nights recapping games. Probably one of the biggest headaches when coaches don't report to you. I'm sure you've run into that, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I would agree. That's probably the hardest part. The most difficult thing is just when you can't get a response, you can't get information, because it's like, even if even if it is, if a team's on the losing end or something, or if a coach, isn't thrilled about it, at least they're, talking and giving you something. So that, that's, like I said earlier, I've been fortunate in that I really haven't had too many negative experiences. Most of these coaches and student athletes have been great. So, but yeah, a lot of late nights, particularly like, Friday nights, when, you just about every school in the area is going to be in action in, football or basketball, whatever season may be, but love every minute of it. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's cool.
Well, we look forward to catching up with you down the road. This has been a fun convo. And before we sign off and let you go again, tell our listeners the best way to catch up with you on Twitter and obviously pick up the latest Argus Press, right?
That's right. You pick up the latest Argus Press. You'll see my articles in there almost every day. And then on Twitter, it's at Teddy Rydquist 88, at my name and then the number 88. So I appreciate it, guys.
All right, Teddy. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Jacobs Insurance Agency has served Shiawassee County and the surrounding areas since 1977. Just like 3 Point Podcasts, we've had 3 generations: Gary Jacobs Sr., Gary Jacobs II, Brian Jacobs, and myself, Noah Jacobs, serving our community with offices in Waterford and Owasso on M21, just west of Home Depot. Stop in or go online to jacobsinsurance.com to get a quote or get your questions answered by our team. Jacobs Insurance is a proud supporter of our local schools and the proud sponsor of the Prep Spotlight. Insure everything, local, independent, and trusted. It's our family working together to protect yours. That's the Jacobs way.
Hey, that was good stuff from Teddy. Definitely read his stuff in the Argus Press. And where I get most of my Prep Spotlight stuff is from the Argus Press. So quickly taking a look at baseball. Owasso down Brandon 5-0 after a complete game shutout by Hayden Smith. Corona's off to a slow start. They lost to Twinville this week to Goodrich 7-0 and 8-1. I think they'll heat it up once the weather changes. And speaking of baseball, Langsburg, Ty Randall, I think he had Tommy John surgery last year after baseball. He had a monster day in a sweep of Potterville, going 7 for 8 at the plate, 3 doubles and a homer. The Tigers could use a kid like that, couldn't they? That's hitting the ball.
5-tool athlete right there.
Absolutely. And also in track and field, we were talking about it a little bit. Corona beat Lake Fenton and Goodrich in a Flint Metro triangular. Tarek Bauer won the 100 meters at 10.82 seconds, just 0.2 of a second off the school record. He also won the long jump, while twin Wyatt took home the gold in the 200 meter. The Owasso girls won a tri-meet over Clio and Brandon, as Libby Summerlin won the 100 meter dash and pole vault. Get this, it's pretty good for the ladies side, 11'3". Have you guys ever tried pole vaulting just to fart around with it?
I did. One of my best friends from the area, we've talked about him on the podcast, John Strine. He graduated in my class. He was a really good pole vaulter in high school, and he went to Eastern Michigan. He got a scholarship to pole vault. And so I kind of messed around with him a little bit, like, him showing me some stuff or whatever. It's not as easy. Not that it looks easy, but it really takes some. You got to get it down. You don't just
really
grab
got
it,
to
run
have
up
the
and do it.
upper strength. You got to have that upper strength for
And
sure.
it's all about the momentum and the timing of everything. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So no, that's awesome for her.
It's one of those things like I've always like kind of grabbed the vault or the pole, I guess you would call it. But I've never had the balls to actually like vault myself up and actually give it a shot. It's pretty terrifying, to be honest. There's one thing maybe before we wrap up prep.
Yeah.
So you got a call from a college, and you just said, "Meh, I don't need to return their call." Like, what are those idiots?
No. It's full disclosure. One of my close buddies, Randy Thayer, played at Northern Michigan. He played on that team that went from a winless team to winning the national championship. And I did get a call at home. Now, keep in mind, this is before the day and age of answer machines.
Right.
My mom answered the phone. They didn't even leave a number, or she didn't write down the number. Just said somebody from Northern Michigan called about football, playing football. I didn't really want to play football. I knew how brutal it can be and how tough it is, but that's pretty much the story. Northern Michigan University had showed some interest. One phone call worth.
That's as far as Ted Patel's football career went.
That's absolutely right.
Well, when they drop you off halfway up to college to have you hitchhike the rest of the way, I mean,
how brutal would it be?
You would have had a hitchhike all the way up to the UP, man. You would have never made it.
I know. That would have been my training. I would have run up there.
Yeah, like a Rocky style or something. I wanted to bring something up. I have something to add to Prep Spotlight.
Yeah.
So I've said it before. My nephews go to Perry, and they both play baseball for the Ramblers this spring. Brady is a junior. My nephew Eli's a freshman, and they don't have a JV team, so he plays varsity. But my nephew Brady is killing it. He plays outfield, and he's hitting 471 and already has 9 stolen bases. The other night, I guess they had a big comeback win over Stockbridge. They scored like 9 runs in the 6th inning to win. Wow. But it was a really cool moment that I wanted to share. So, really cool that they're both playing well. Brady is, he's a junior. He's really doing really, I mean, he's playing great right now for Perry. But the cool moment is, like I said, Eli is a backup catcher as a freshman, and Brady is starting to pitch a little bit. And they actually got to pitch and catch together, brothers, one brother on the mound, one behind the plate. So pretty cool moment, obviously, to see them out there on the field at the same time. But yeah, Perry, they're playing pretty well.
How are you're able to keep up, obviously, with your sister, but are you able to check any NFHS feeds or any video feeds of any kind?
I haven't. I'm not sure if they're on there. They have a Facebook group that actually is pretty active, posting all this stuff. And yeah, family keeps me updated too. But I need to look in to see if NFHS has. I don't know if they do high school baseball, especially like for Perry. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I did check with Corunna because I was kind of interested in maybe going and maybe throwing something up on our Facebook Live, and maybe do a Corunna Wasso, but they don't have an NFHS over there at the baseball field. So
gotcha.
It's too bad. One final thing I want to throw out there, Langsburg, they have a robotics team, and the robotics club's at the World Championships this week in Houston, Texas. So go Red Thunder. That's kind of cool. We've talked about the e-games. I haven't really seen much about that. I know Corunna had an e-club, or is that what it's called?
Esports.
Where they play video games.
Esports.
But the robotics club World Championship, that's pretty cool. Kind of goes with the Odyssey of the Mind that we're familiar with too.
You see all those signs when you enter Corunna, OM World Championships. That's cool.
Well, we're going to get into
a whole other, we won't get into it this time, but a whole other topic that we could get into sometime, maybe during the dog days of summer. The kid for Lanesburg, was it, that already had Tommy John in high school?
Yeah.
Some friends and I were talking about it pretty extensively, in our text group, about how the Tommy John thing has just taken over, and kids are starting to get Tommy John surgery in high school, and just how crazy it is. And their kids are coming up through like 9U, 12U, 13U baseball, talking about kids already trying to throw sliders and stuff at that age. And so that could be a discussion. We could probably do a whole podcast on how crazy it is that kids are having Tommy John surgery in high school. It's insane.
Well, we should have a segment sometime down the road about youth baseball and coaches that allow them to do that kind of stuff. You should just throw fastballs, maybe little small curves, but mostly fastballs. Work on the fundamentals.
Yep, I agree.
Just like Jared when he used to dominate Little League, right, Jared?
I had a 6-pitch mix, man. And I had fire, so I didn't get touched. I was my own worst enemy out there on the mountain, man. If I could throw it in the strike zone, I couldn't get touched. But
Was it?
Yeah.
There was a story, or was it you missed the game-winning free throw, or there was a story that like you gave up the game-winning grand slam or
I had
something?
a few blunders. So I had a Chris Webber moment in basketball one time that we were in sudden death overtime. I called a timeout when we didn't have any timeouts. Kid, because it was sudden death and it was a technical, went to the free throw line, buried it. We lost. That was brutal. And then the championship game. This is what I'm talking about. Is I went the entire season. I don't think I allowed to run the entire year. And then championship game, I don't know what it was. I just the pressure, whatever it was, got to me. Walked everybody around the bases, the old carousel, as they call it in youth baseball, and lost it for our team. So yeah, that was the last time I ever stepped foot on a baseball field.
Never recovered.
Never recovered.
That was when I kind of realized this shit's for the birds, man. I don't know why I'm even while you're playing this. Kind of a quitter's mentality, but I don't really regret it.
All right. Well, we'll leave the prep spotlight right there with that scintillating story by Jared, and we'll be right back with more right after this.